From the NBC Local 33 Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Jesse Gunkel with a quick update this evening. This is the latest from the 10 p.m. advisory, and we are starting to see signs of intensification. The winds have strengthened a little bit up to 50 miles per hour. Some wind gusts up to about 55 miles per hour with this system. Main thing is it's also dropping pressure. So again, that's another sign that this storm is getting a little bit stronger out there. It doesn't look like it because when you look big picture out here, obviously not much going on. We've had a lot of dry air in the mix today. That's kind of kept that thunderstorm activity developing on the north side of the system. But the south side, well, it's been brewing all day long. Lots of thunderstorm activity out there. You can see a lot of those clouds getting stripped away from some upper level winds out there, some wind shear. But otherwise, not too much going on. Again, we got some thunderstorms kind of in the mix that passed through. It was just one of those tropical wave bands that came through. And as otherwise, again, just a couple spin ups here. But I do start to see, and I think we're going to see it overnight, more thunderstorm activity starting to wrap around this system as it starts to make a west-northwestern turn in the coming day. And I think that's when we're going to start to see that rain quickly push its way into southeastern Louisiana. And that's when we're going to see a little bit more rain here in Baton Rouge and even down in New Orleans. So again, we had a nice little pocket of dry air that was in place for much of the day, but now starting to get closed off. We're starting to see more moisture kind of migrating southward with this system at this point. So again, that's kind of going away as the system just crawling to the west now at 3 miles per hour. As you see here, by the time we get to tomorrow morning, when you wake up, the winds could be sustained at 60 miles per hour, a couple stronger wind gusts, climbing about 65 miles per hour by late Friday. Very early on Saturday now, you see, just before landfall, we're talking a very strong tropical storm or even a very weak hurricane. That's why we still have hurricane warnings in place, because there's a very brief window that we could see some wind gusts possibly over 70 miles per hour. And then once it gets inland, it should start to weaken. As you notice, going off towards the northwest, driving through the state, winds are sitting at 50. And obviously for us, we still sit in that northeastern quadrant, which is the worst part of the storm to be in. This could also track a little bit back towards the west at this point. So heaviest rainfall right now in our neck of the woods. Also those strongest winds from this system at this point. So obviously I just want to point out there is still the potential that we could see a hurricane gust or two out there. However, I believe a lot of that is going to be residing more along the coastline at this point. Notice we are under hurricane warnings from Intracoastal City all the way to Grand Isle, not the mouth of the Mississippi. From the mouth of the Mississippi to Pearl River, we are under a tropical storm warning. And further inland now, east and west Baton Rouge Parish underneath tropical storm warnings that extends across Lake Pontchartrain to the North Shore. So St. Tammany, Tangipahoa, Livingston, and obviously that goes all the way to Acadiana at this point. So again, the likelihood for tropical storm conditions and hurricane conditions within the next 36 hours. So it's knocking on our doorstep. As you see here, track models kind of leaning back to the west a little bit over the last couple runs out there, kind of following more of what's going on with the European model. We're going to have to see what happens after midnight with that 1 o'clock run, just because does it track further to the west or does it stay kind of where it is? As you see here, we're going to see a lot of that heavy rainfall. I still think this model is going a little bit on the intense side. I think its rain totals are also a little bit above normal. That's where we're seeing those 25 plus inches of rainfall, and that's what we've been seeing over the last couple of days. But notice even some of these rain bands kind of extending back into the Gulf still very late on Sunday at this point. It looks like we're going to eventually see that rain kind of cut off by the time we most likely get to about Monday now. However, I also want to show you this. So far, that center of circulation, it's not small, it's not tight, it's very broad. And as you see here, the GFS, the American model, is kind of picking up on that the fact that it's still kind of broad, slides a little bit further towards the west. However, a lot of the heavier rain bands aren't close to the center. They're actually a few miles to the east. And the concern with that is still we could be seeing some heavy rainfall. But if this moves back to the east, you see here, and if the steering winds kind of drive it back in that general direction, however, I still think it's going kind of a little bit more west, then we could be out of a lot of the heavy rainfall and keeping a lot of that shower activity more so towards the mouth of the Mississippi and into portions of Mississippi and Alabama at that point. And then the rain bands kind of drape through the area until probably late on Sunday going into Monday. As you see here, the NAM model going a little bit further towards the west. This is our in-house model, the RPM. And as you see here, we've also got a couple of thunderstorms. Notice all those bands kind of whipping across southeastern Louisiana for a long extended period of time. In fact, if this all drives through and if this model verifies, then we could be dealing with some pretty heavy rainfall here in the capital area, because I believe those heavier bands are going to drive through Ascension and Livingston Parish and then drive off towards the northeast. So flash flood watch in place all the way through late Saturday, most likely extended into possibly Sunday, depending on how long those rain bands kind of sit across the area. Here is the latest update, and you see they got a bullseye here for that heavy rainfall. Again, if it follows that in-house, that RPM model, that's where we're going to see all that heavy rainfall. The Euro shows the same thing, and that's where we could easily see some areas up to about 18 inches of rainfall. So again, that is a lot of rainfall. The big time concern here is that rainfall's got to drain into our local streams, but at the same time, it's getting counteracted by those winds pushing in from the Gulf of Mexico. Those winds, well, guess what? They're pushing back. So you almost create like a dam. You're going to get that backwater effect. So backwater flooding will be a concern. If we get a lot of heavy rain, drainage into our local streams, that's all got to push into the lake. So again, that is not a good combination at this point. Obviously, just showing you another model just to give you a better indication. This is our in-house model. And notice again, if it sets up, you can see easily 10 inches of rainfall. This could move a few miles to the east, and that's where we could be sitting under a band of 11 to again, anywhere from 10 to 20 inches of rainfall with this system. So it all depends on where those bands set up and those heavy pockets reside. But otherwise, the impacts for us, obviously, inland flooding will be our biggest concern here in the capital area. Still calling for 10 to 20. Locally, we could see some higher amounts. Be on the lookout for a few isolated tornadoes. We do sit under a slight risk for severe weather going into the weekend. Maybe a funnel cloud out there, tropical funnel cloud, or even a water spout if you live near some open waters. Otherwise, Friday, Saturday, tropical storm, hurricane force winds. We'll start to see that soon. Hurricane force winds mainly near the coast, mainly just around Vermilion Bay, and then obviously coastal flooding and storm surge, big factor over the next couple of days. And as you see here, we've got warnings all across the coast. That extends all the way from Intracoastal City all the way to the Pearl River at this point, and even further inland, we're looking at a watch. So that does include the city of New Orleans at this point. So just stay alert, be prepared, don't panic, have that game plan if necessary to put it into action, and we will continue to monitor the situation through the overnight hours and throughout the daytime tomorrow, and as we get to about landfall, which most likely will happen in Louisiana. If you have any questions, concerns, you can follow us on social media. We'll try to get to every question if at all possible. Until then, just stay safe this evening.